Tangier split, whose sore borders break and continents drift, when shifting rock and heat of time cleft plates apart, pushed ice to brine. The trade winds and the westerlies, the push and pull of the gyre, the glass eel chasing estuaries, to ford and fen, to mud and mire.
The Somerset Level moors are a really unique landscape. It is steeped in history and mysticism. It is a plethora of species that thrive across these landscapes. It's been utilised by man for thousands of years, and we are just a guardian for a snippet of this landscape's time. And this landscape's going to be here far beyond us, and I think it's really important for us to make sure that this landscape does thrive and is connected to the rest of the county. Eels have been using the Somerset Levels and moors for thousands of years. Internationally they're now declining, and we want to make sure that we can do everything we can to enable them to fulfil their life cycle, for areas to be repopulated where they are struggling, and thrive on our nature reserves. Eels face a variety of barriers and issues as they return to England. There's a huge numbers of water structures across the Somerset Levels and moors, from tidal barriers to twin leaf penstocks, stop boards, tilting weirs. All of these are in place to help control water levels, and we want to make sure that these are passable and usable for eels.
So today we are collecting data on the presence of European eels on our reserves to study how the connectivity of the landscape influences their movement. So this data will help us to inform our management of the reserves, to increase that movement between reserves, and hopefully lead to a better habitat for their population to thrive in. So this project is a collaboration between Somerset Wildlife Trust, the Sustainable Eel Group and the West Country Rivers Trust.
So the European eel is a critically endangered fish species. It lives for an awful long time and it faces a lot of issues and threats throughout that lifespan. The young eels are born way over in the Caribbean in the Sargasso Sea, and they use the currents to make their way over to Europe. And when they get to the coast, they're known as glass eels, and they spend some time hiding in the coastal habitats, and then they make their way up to the rivers, hopefully to find somewhere like we're in at the moment, this lake. And the aim of the game is to get as much fat on them and grow large, sometimes over decades, so they're in good shape to make that journey way back to the Sargasso Sea to spawn. Okay, so the reserves we're at the moment have actually been receiving a restocking of glass eels a few years back now, millions in fact, and we're hoping that these areas are really good growing on grounds for eel. When we're looking to monitor a population of eels, generally we use fight nets, and these are sort of two trap net ends, and they're connected with a wall of net. Hey. So 4?
I think so.
Well, Mark, there's your babies from the restocking.
Very exciting.
Very exciting indeed. I think that's a safe assumption to say those smaller eels we caught, which is about the smallest we would catch in a fight net, are probably the ones you stocked in here 4 or 5 years ago.
Brilliant.
Great
So
story.
good to see. I think it's a good safe assumption that these smaller eels are the eels that Somerset Wildlife Trust has restocked into this unit. Fantastic news.
So this project has seen some good monitoring at the start here to try and understand eel populations, but what's really important is that we continue this in the future. So we're working together, West Country Rivers Trust and Somerset Wildlife Trust, to try and train up some citizen scientists, and we'll see if we can actually instigate some long-term monitoring on some of these sites, which will be really valuable for eel in the future.
Through survey work and modelling, this project aims to identify the most prolific barriers to the movement of eels across the landscape. And this will allow us to target those particular barriers by adding eel passes, and this will hopefully allow for the species to move more freely across the landscape towards the coast.
What I'm hoping from this project is we'll have a really good idea of what parts of the reserves eels are using, what the populations are like, and to ensure that there is good passage and escapement through to the wider system. So I'm hoping that we're going to end up with a lot of really good data that we can work with and put another stage of this project together.
Nights distill, the trade winds and the westerlies, the push and pull of the giant, the glass eel chasing estuaries, to ford and fen, to mud and mire, and as the leaves are doomed to bruise and the fruit is bound for falling, we are all compelled to move our busy skies and racing oceans.